this point for this football team, and you have to motivate these guys. So at the end of the day, it's another opportunity. We've talked about how unique this college football landscape has gotten, but each opportunity is something that all these guys have to take advantage of, whether or not they're going to be on this roster next year, they're going to move on to the NFL. So there's a lot to still be playing for, and I just really hope that these guys have the ethos of Penn State at the back and at the forefront of their mind here heading into Michigan State, because it's a great opportunity for them to get themselves out of the gutter on a roll and potentially into a bowl game, and it starts today.
Yeah, like you said, Christian, there's no such thing as moral victories, but I think last week was definitely a performance that this team can build off of, and I think that's a positive you take out of it. And at the end of the day, I think today's a really unique matchup in the sense that you got two teams whose seasons have really played out the same way, outside of the fact that, MSU wasn't ranked number 2 at the beginning of the season, but, you win 3 non-conference games, and essentially you lose every game after that. And that's where both of these teams are, who are both super, super hungry for a win. Michigan State's at home. We're Penn State. We're their Super Bowl. Like, we know how this game goes. So I think this is an interesting matchup where, I think it's going to be an all-out effort on both sides. It's really going to be a dogfight, and hopefully Penn State can come out on top today.
Not just the Super Bowl maybe for Michigan State. Today's the battle for the Land-Grant Trophy. We're going to preview the matchup with the Spartans, obviously talk a ton more about Penn State and Indiana as well. What went right last weekend in Penn State's comeback at West Shore home field at Beaver Stadium? Here is what is coming up on today's show. As promised, Michigan State preview. It is a trophy game. Take a look at that thing. Look at that sucker. No better rivalry trophy in all of college football. And then we'll get some of your questions coming up at the end of the show as well. So let's dive into that game from last week, Penn State and Indiana at West Shore home field at Beaver Stadium. Right, Penn State rattles off 17 points in a row to come back and take the lead 24-20. A couple of chances down the stretch to close it out defensively. Had a chance to close it out on offense as well. Let's look at the numbers first from last week's game against the Hoosiers. And remember, this was the number 2 team in the country that came in rolling. They came in rolling, and statistically, Penn State in nearly every category was better in that football game. Third downs for me, really impressive. They got off the field on defense, 8 for 15 on offense, ran the football. Nicholas Singleton, the game of the year for him so far, 71 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 through the air and 2 on the ground. Really impressive numbers. Christian, Penn State went toe-to-toe with one of the top teams in the country. They played well last week.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it. This is a talented team, and last week was a perfect example of that. But at the end of the day, the game and the results don't necessarily come down to what's on paper. And that's been the struggle for all of Penn State fans and anybody covering the team, frankly, this year is the math hasn't mathed up until this point. And again, gut-wrenching win or gut-wrenching loss, tough to lose that way, but competitive overall, and this team started playing a little bit to what their ceiling and their full capabilities were. So important to carry that into today. And it's just going to be tough with the emotions that are going into this. There's a lot of things that aren't really quantifiable outside of what we saw on that previous graphic that I think are going to play a factor into this team and the remainder of the season.
Yeah, and just related to what you just said, Christian, we tell corners all the time when they get beat on a deep ball that you got to have short-term memory. And I think when it comes to this team, I know there's a lot that, you got to forget when it comes to this year, but you got to go into this game having a short-term memory. That's the reality. You got to forget the losses. You got to forget that Coach Franklin is fired. You got to forget that, you don't know what's going to happen next year and who the new coach is going to be and all of these external factors and noise that at the end of the day can impact how you play today. You got to take them out of your head. You got to delete the external noise. You got to go into this game thinking, what can I do today to play my role the best, to give our team a chance to win this football game? And hopefully they can go in there and do that.
When you look at that, Jason, that's what they did against Indiana. I mean, they made some corrections. They played with a lot of intensity from the first snap. A guy I talked about this week with you is Dom DeLuca coming out, playing with his hair on fire, made some splash plays on the defensive side of the ball that I think really got the momentum going. And then even when they were down, you saw the fight offensively, and they were able to make some second half adjustments that I thought were really critical for them to be able to play their way back into that football game.
Yeah, Christian, let's get into some of those things that Let's get into some of those things that they did offensively, right? 5 of these 6 losses are by 16 total points, a pair of 1-point losses, but you are now seeing things offensively that you can build on going into the game today.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really love to see, specifically in the second half, we talked about it all year, is leaning into their run game, but then not only just having that, but then building off of it, right? From a vertical passing game standpoint, being able to take shots and create explosives. It's something that the fans, everyone covering the team has talked about this year, is the lack of that, especially coming from what Andy Kaltenicki was able to do last year with guys like Tyler Warren. We have the pieces to be able to do so. We just haven't really meshed the concepts together. And I thought the second half adjustments, and we can roll some tape here because we really didn't see it a lot in the first half. But in the second half, you saw us go play action. This is, 4th and 1 early, typical stuff. Same here. 1st and 10, little flat routes. But here's where you really start to see it is Ethan Grunmeyer turns his back, hard play action. You see the linebackers suck up, and you're able to create space over top of them and underneath the safeties. And we were able to get some pretty big explosive plays on 1st and 2nd down. Our traditional rundowns where we lean heavily on Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, and we were able to create those types of that space for those explosive plays. And that's really what I had hoped this team would do from the beginning of the year, just the way they were built. And you heard Coach Smith talk about it multiple times this week when he's had media availability about being able to finally create some shots off of play action. And it was a really good job. I think it's something that they need to continue to build upon with the type of guys they have on the outside. And again, the emphasis on the run game that has been very apparent since Coach Smith has taken over.
Jason, it started against Ohio State a bit for Nicholas Singleton, but he breaks off that 59-yard run, and I think you could feel it not just on the sideline, I think the entire stadium. You could just feel a weight lifted off everyone's shoulders to finally see Singleton do what he does best. It wasn't just Nicholas Singleton, though. It was the offensive line creating holes. So how does what Christian's talking about with the vertical passing game, how does it all play together to piggyback on what Christian's talking about, where then offensively they can start to create some of those explosive plays on the ground as well?
Well, I think the biggest part of it, and me and Christian have been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. It's the marriage of the run and the pass game when it comes to the play action. And I think when you look at the plays that were showed in those clips there, most of those play actions were all downhill fakes. They're all running fakes and run actions where they're coming downhill at you. Even if it's outside zone, it's still downhill at you. A lot of the play action that we've seen that hasn't worked this year has been too horizontal. It's been jet sweep type of run fake action, and the linebackers in the second level just don't believe it. And now when you start to have, because the thing is, the run game has been successful when we run the ball downhill. So when we're marrying that with the pass game, and then you're actually affecting the second level, now you're creating space between the second and third level. And that's where the big ones, and being able to create those balls downfield and get vertical and be aggressive down the field, that's when those opportunities are able to marry in with the run game. So that's kind of what's starting to happen. And I hope they can really continue that. And that's kind of one of the things that they can build off of going into this next game.
Yeah, and I think Trip, to add to that, when you, I think it was timing, right? When you start talking about timing and how it directly affected the run game, our propensity to start using the play action game early, 1st and 2nd down in traditional rundowns, that's just another thing that these guys have to start thinking about, to Jason's point, at the second level. And that's the group that you're really starting to affect. And any type of hesitation there can create time for the offensive line to be able to get to the second level, get a hat on a hat, and create a little bit more space for an explosive back like Nick Singleton. Sometimes that's all he needs. He just needs you to catch an edge of that linebacker, and he's going to be able to be already at the third level. And you started to see that towards the latter half of the game. I thought we ran the ball well. We didn't run it extremely efficiently, but we were able to rip a couple big ones off later in the game when you saw that mixture of the timing with the play actions early. And I think you could see the second half of Indiana, or the back half of Indiana's defense, be really affected by that. And it was a step slower to something that they may have attacked a little bit more aggressively had they not been burned over the top by a play action, a series or two ago.
Yeah, when you have a guy like Trevor Pena going downfield, he had 6 catches for 99 yards in the game. It sets up Nicholas Singleton, and we have the footage, Christian. Why don't you take us through it to talk about Nicholas Singleton and what he was able to do, the things that you and Jason were just mentioning?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this is a condensed field, right? So it's a little bit tougher to narrow in on the marriage that we were talking about, but we stayed with it. We're able to get downhill. Nick's able to get efficient runs, right? We're not talking 12, 15, 20-yard plus explosives, but those 4 to 5 started to wear on them. And here later in the game, we were able to capitalize on that. But these are the types of things that you need to continue to see, even with this is a pass, obviously, but being able to slip him out, adding different things to the same looks, same formations that presented, whether it be a downhill run, whether it be a play action, hard action off Grunk from that pistol set, and being able to attack the middle half of the field. But you see those things start creating a little bit more space, and that's where you really get the beauty and the flow of an offensive coordinator, and it really sets your guys up to be in positions to capitalize on opportunities and the defense thinking more than reacting.
Speaking of what that defense did well, and I want to get Jason's reaction on the defensive side for Penn State. But first, I thought how this team handled the adversity of the football game, too. It's a 10-7 game. You're right there with Indiana. And then the backbreaking fumble from Katron Allen going into the locker room, all of a sudden, you have what was going to be a one-possession game becomes a two-possession game. Then you have the interception to start the second half, and they still stuck with it. So you cannot question this team's heart and fight. And Indiana really had to earn every inch, every yard, and every point offensively in a game for a high-scoring, potent offense with a potential Heisman winner at quarterback. And we saw the stable of wide receivers, even without one of their best options playing last week, that they have. And Jason, it's because Jim Knowles' defense really turned up the heat last week.
Yeah, they really did. They really turned it up last week, and they started looking more like a Penn State defense. They were more suffocating. This is the most flustered I'd seen Mendoza. They're flushing him out of the pocket. They're making him not have still feet when this is a guy whose feet I've been bragging about for weeks. Might look like one of the best in this entire quarterback class. So that's what I expect out of this defense. They're playing with energy. They're playing with spirit. They're playing, with their hair on fire and playing discipline. So that's what I love. I want you guys to roll the tape here because I think one of the biggest things is the pass rush lane discipline in this game was exactly what it's supposed to be. You look at the disruption right here, TFL. Then you look at Mendoza, we bring pressure where we actually get home. We're finishing plays. Like, this is just great stuff. Deny putting his foot on the ground, getting to the outside. We're making plays on the screens. We're making tackles, the plays that we should have. Mendoza steps up to the pocket. Deny actually retraces, and we get him down to the ground. These are all the fundamentals in the pass rush that we were missing earlier in this year in general. And they came out and did their thing this time. We talked about a twist last week and how we had a guy slip up and through the twist. Right here, we finish it. More pressure, cover zero. This is in gotta have it situations at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. We brought cover zero 3 times in a row. Incomplete, near interception here. Last week, I talked about bringing 3 up and having that middle rush and not allowing the quarterback to run up the middle. Now he has to flush out wide, forces a bad pass. So all of the things that we needed corrected, especially when it came to the pass rush and the D-line and the discipline, those things got fixed. And that's the result of that when they play with their hair on fire and they play with energy and effort.
In any game, let alone a big game, you need your best players to be the best players. And Penn State got a great performance up front from Dani Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant. And that takeaway that you saw in that footage there, the first second half takeaway by Penn State, the King Mack interception, the first second half takeaway since the final non-conference game of the regular season against Villanova. So they finally were able to make some big plays down the stretch. But as we know, right at the end, Indiana still made the biggest plays of the football game. Have you ever seen any, like all your years in football, both of you combined, any level, is it luck? Like at this point, Penn State fans are scratching their head, and rightfully so, that how when you get a pressure on a quarterback and the ball floats a little bit, how can't you be the one to pick it off? How does Amari Campbell not have a chance to make that play? How does a guy get that toe down? It's a blade of grass that maybe changes the course, even in that Oregon game, changes the course of the entirety of this Penn State football season and maybe even the program where it's at right now. Have you guys ever seen a team maybe as snake bitten as this Penn State football team has been?
Man, I'll tell you what, it makes me think of any given Sunday. It's a game of inches, man, and it truly is. And then you And then Jason, I'm sure you've heard a lot of this talk in your years. I have, the football gods, the baseball gods. Like it's
The
one of those
football
things, man.
gods. Yep.
I don't know if we have the right juju in the locker room, the right shrine made up. I don't know if we're giving Joe Boo his pregame juice or what, but it's it has been tough. But what I will say is I think specifically with this Indiana game, when you watch it, Jason mentioned it, critical situation on that last cut, how our defense just let it go, right? Like they were zero. It's like, hey, we're coming after you. Our best versus your best. We're taking our shot. There's no hesitancy here. And at the end of the day, Indiana was able to do that. But that was the first time I've seen that in a really, really long time from one unit. And offensively, we had the opportunity to do that twice, and we mismanaged one opportunity. And the other one, I just thought we got back to being very, very conservative and trying to play the analytics game where we wanted to finish the game in like 4-minute offense. When's the last time we've done that? I can't like Jason, I really can't remember the last time we've finished a game in 4-minute offense on our terms. So
Yeah.
it becomes, I think, more of a question of like, are we going to be able to let that go? Are we going to be able to say that we're going to die on a mountain of aggressiveness as opposed to having to kind of answer to the media who are all reading the coach's handbook and the situations and, well, why didn't you go more 4-minute offense there up four with four? Well, because we haven't won that game in 10 years doing that. So I wanted our guys to go out there and play free and play loose and go try to put a fork in them. So I just think it's a weird combination of the football gods, kind of some analytics and a little bit of a lack of, I think, like finisher mentality that only comes from experiencing it. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, and the minute you experience it, it's very easy to get on a momentum type of run. But it's just been like this door that we've never been able to crack through in a few years, specifically against these more marquee matchups.
Yeah, and I also hope that, we learn from what happened in that early Oregon game because we conjured so much energy and so much effort into that game. Obviously, it's a big game. It was a top 5 matchup. We had a number 2 team in the country come into our house. We take them almost all the way. It takes a 1 in a million catch on the back pylon. I mean, an amazing throw and catch, really, to win that game. Can this team reset this week? Can Terry Smith get this team to reset, have a short-term memory, forget about what happened, and conjure that same energy again and bring it in that same way? We've seen this team not be able to do that for a second week in a row when they have a big disappointment like that. So that's where I want to see the growth of this team is can we withstand a heartbreaking loss? Can we withstand a loss where it just slipped right through our fingers? But come out the next week and go and do it again and put forth that same effort. That's what I want to see today.
When you're sitting at 0-6 in the Big Ten, you don't think of it as the same philosophy, but it is that same philosophy we've talked about so many times. You don't let one loss become 2. Play this game this week as this game this week. Show up ready to play, and they're going to have to do it without the Penn State fans this week, who were unbelievable at Beaver Stadium last week. And I know on the radio side, and Jason has huge shoes to fill on the sidelines today. But I know on the radio side, we were talking pregame, like we weren't sure what to expect because it's a bit of a late arriving crowd. How engaged would they be? But I wanted to make mention of it before we went to break here, how great the Penn State fans were. They always show up, always show out, and really made a difference. They were impactful in that game last week, and it really is a testament to, I think, the community, the way that this team gets supported by Penn State fans through thick and thin. And if you're a coach, if you're a recruit, if you're someone that's going to be in the transfer portal and you're watching that game last week against Indiana and you see Penn State winless in the Big Ten, preseason number 2, the year hasn't gone the way that people were hoping it would go, and to still see the fans support the team like that in a game like that, I think it tells you all you need to know about Penn State.
I couldn't agree more, Trip. It was extremely impressive. Being on the sidelines and watching that, and just having seen what this program has gone through in really a 20-year span here, 25-year span, the peaks and valleys of this program. And the one thing that has been consistent is the culture around it. And that's the one thing that I see on Twitter. I've been on Twitter this week a lot more, or X, a lot more than I typically am. And that's been one of those things is like, hey, it's because it's what we do. Like that is what we do. We show up for the guys. And just speaking personally, from an anecdotal standpoint, one of the biggest things that I appreciated during my time there, and that's something that's never going to change. So that's a great call out, and I appreciate you taking some time to say that.
I did a social media hit piece this morning for CBS over at the Midra Fan Fest, and we're doing Penn State fan trivia, and these people are absolutely screaming their heads off in my ears. Like, there is no lack of excitement. There is no lack of energy whatsoever, even though we are 0-6 in the Big Ten right now. Like, they are here in full force, and I'm all the way out here in Michigan. It's going to be cold. It ain't going to be the best day, but they show up, and they always do.
I just looked at the weather because, Jason was out running around and I wanted to make sure we could give everyone a fair forecast here on the pregame. It's 62. Now it's windy, but it's 62 degrees. Last time these two teams played, it was at Ford Field inside. But the last time Penn State played there, it was a heavy snowstorm. So, Jason, I don't want to hear at all about how cold it is because I was dodging snowballs down on the sideline. I don't want to hear it.
I'm just saying, look, I came prepared with my parka because I've been in these late Michigan State November games, and they were always very miserable ones. So I came prepared. I ain't gonna lie, it's not what I thought it was gonna be. It's doable, but it's normally worse.
You can always take layers off. You can always take layers off, Bubba. So I like it.
He's spoiled from playing inside when he was in Detroit.
Thin skin from Florida now recently as well. I think that sun's really been wiping away any type of calluses you built up.
Well, speaking of Penn State, Michigan State, we're going to preview today's game when we come back. You're watching the Penn State football pregame show. It's presented by Modelo. Modelo, the official import beer partner of Penn State football. 21 plus, please drink responsibly. We'll get to today's game when we come back here on the pregame show.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
We are going for all the marbles next year.
You know the history, and you have felt the roar. But now, you can relive it all.
I think he was looking for a good meal, Italian meal.
Welcome to the Vault on Roar Plus, where every unforgettable Penn State moment lives forever.
If you can get people to believe you're fair, I think that's the whole secret of coaching.
From black and white grit to high-def glory, the Vault is your front row seat to the moments that built this tradition and the ones that built you as a fan. It's not just history, it's Penn State history. And it's all right here at Roar Plus. The roar never stops.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
Welcome back here on the Penn State football pregame show. It's brought to you by Modelo. Again, Modelo, the official import beer partner of Penn State football. 21 plus. Please drink responsibly. We'll have one more at Beaver Stadium next week ahead of Penn State and Nebraska. Then they wrap up the year at Rutgers. But who would have thought, sitting here mid-November, that Penn State, Purdue, and Michigan State are the three winless teams in the Big Ten. Michigan State coming off a bye week. Actually, it's one of three teams that Penn State will play in conference coming off a bye week this year. They arguably had one of their best performances, 23-20, lost on the road at Minnesota last time out for Michigan State. But before we even get into the X's and O's and the key players to watch, it's been certainly a week of a little turmoil in East Lansing as the NCAA announced the results of their investigation into the Michigan State program. And this was under previous head coach Mel Tucker before Jonathan Smith took over, and the penalties that come along with that investigation. So here's the news this week breaking for East Lansing and in Michigan State. 3 years probation, 14 wins vacated from seasons. Yeah, you can wipe the records. The game still took place. Fined $30,000 plus 1.5% of the football program's annual budget, and restrictions on official visits and recruiting communication. Jason, you're there. You're on site today. Certainly have been in town for a couple of days. Any reaction from the locals? I mean, here's a team and a program that over the last 10 years has gone from one of the very best in the Big Ten to the bottom of the Big Ten. Any buzz around this Michigan State program, and anything going on with that news as well?
Yeah, there hasn't really been much buzz from this program in these last really 10 years, which honestly for me is a big surprise, because when me and Christian played there, Michigan State had always had really strong teams, a really strong culture, regardless of where they ended up from a ranking standpoint in the Big Ten. So it is surprising. When Mel was there, I did feel like they were getting that team back on track to who they were supposed to be. And then, when those things kind of, went down with him, I felt like that kind of just took all the momentum for the program. So, obviously a ton of Detroit Lions fans here, a ton of Michigan fans here, but the Michigan State fans is kind of third. So I don't think there's too much buzz, but it's unfortunate, because this is a program, that I always knew when I was playing to be a very strong, a very high culture type of program. Hopefully, one day they get back to being that.
It's interesting because with the coaching search going on right here at Penn State, you think of Penn State obviously as a blue blood program, and they dominate and own Pennsylvania, especially if you look at the score of what's going on at Acrisure Stadium today. But Penn State, they have Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, you got Michigan State in their footprint. Michigan, as Jason's talking about, Ohio State, Notre Dame. It's like, where do they really fit? And this is a team that has to rely on consistent defense, steady defense, and a run game. Remember the one good year, and it was all transfers that Mel Tucker had. It was because they had a great run game with Walker at running back that year. It's kind of a little bit of a catch-22 for Michigan State right now, Christian, just where they're at overall as a program.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And to Jason's point, I thought Mark D'Antonio did a really good job of, I would liken it to a slightly more upscale Iowa, if that makes sense, where what you're going to get, but he had the flexibility in terms of recruiting pool and where he was pulling kids from to get a couple more playmakers that I think Iowa struggles with, just location wise from just overall recruiting circle, or if you were to draw a heat map of that. But to your point, these types of things, these types of distractions with the NCAA are things that when you don't have a true blue blood program that really owns the market, it's really tough to. You can't have any self-inflicted wounds, and this is one of those self-inflicted wounds. To Jason's point, I personally would love to see Michigan State back to being that elevated Iowa type of program, because it's good for the conference, it's good for football as a whole. But they got some work to do, and there's some, I think, decisions that are going to be made subsequently. And where you mentioned this coaching cycle, there's going to be a lot more craziness in the next month or two. So buckle up. But just as a fan of the conference, I really hope that they're able to come out of this on a better side.
Well, you mentioned decisions to be made. One of those today at quarterback for Michigan. They've really been using two guys. Adrian Childs, the incumbent starter to start the year. And now the decision today for the second consecutive game for Jonathan Smith. Alessio Milivojevic, he's going to get the start today, coming off 311 yards at Minnesota, 20 for 28 in his first career start. Two guys, different styles. And Jason, as a defender, it's hard to prepare when you go into a game and you're not sure who you're going to see under center.
Yeah, that's always tough, and I think defensively you have to go into that practices and game plan wise, assuming that you're going to see both of them, and I honestly think that they will see both of them today. Aiden Childs, more of your true dual threat guy. Honestly, he's played pretty solid. I think the real problem with Aiden is the fact that he makes critical mistakes. When he gets sacked, the ball comes off of him. They have a lot of quarterback design runs with him. He's fumbled on those. The ball just comes off of him. I wouldn't say he's interception happy, but the ball ends up on the ground when he gets hit. Alessio is more of your prototypical type of quarterback. Obviously a smaller sample size. So, Penn State defense has been preparing for both. I expect both to play today. But I really still feel like Aiden is the leader of this team. I still feel like the offense looks better and can be a bit more dynamic when Aiden's on the field, because this is still a team that wants to commit to the run game. And even when they get into the red zone, they want to run the ball in. They don't want to throw it in. They want to run the ball in. And I think that's when you see the most of the quarterback design runs and things of that nature. And if Alessio does get the start, I would pay attention to when they get in the red zone. I'd have my ears up for Aiden Childs entering the game back in to run those quarterback design run packages that they have.
Yeah, and they have been good in the red zone this year. It's one of the areas they've been good in. They're 30 for 33 in the red zone. Penn State, we know, has struggled to defend mobile quarterbacks and quarterbacks using their legs against Penn State effectively this season. The other thing to watch for this offense, Nick Marsh is a heck of a wide receiver, and they can create some explosive plays on the offensive side. Amari Kelly's a nice tandem with him, second in receptions on the team, leads the team in all-purpose yards. But Nick Marsh is a real threat at wide receiver for Michigan State, Christian.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when you only have to worry about one of them, it makes your job a little bit easier for Penn State. But yes, if they're able to isolate him in certain matchups, and whether it be formationally with motions, whatever it may be, when you have an explosive playmaker like that, I know Michigan State's probably going to try to find those, and Penn State on our side, we have to be able to be prepared to defend those. And just looking at the overall matchup with the quarterback play, to your point, I really do think the dual threats, what's hurt us. You even go back to the UCLA game and Mendoza even last week. I thought we did a really good job winning on third down, but there were a couple where they did convert with him using his legs and creating some explosives there. So we need to continue to get better with our rush lane integrity and allow our defensive line to really create havoc. If we do, I think to Jason's point, Childs is turnover prone. You don't really have a huge sample size with. I'm not even going to attempt the last name, but it's one of those things where it'll play into our favor. Milivojevic. There we go.
Yeah, it rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch to the Michigan State defense.
Getting it started is the scary part.
The Michigan State defense allowing more than 31 points per game this year. It's the worst statistical defense in terms of points per game against in the Big Ten. Teams have been able to run on them, throw on them, and they simply, Jason, their best players, the linebacker, Jordan Hall, but they don't have a consistent pass rush, and really because teams have been able to establish the line of scrimmage against them defensively, they've struggled on the defensive side of the football too.
Yeah, I think honestly they've struggled from that standpoint on both sides of the ball, establishing the run and stopping the run. And I think that's one reason why, if I feel like they can get that same exact energy and effort they had last week going into this game, that the things that they can build on, I think in this game, they can really capitalize on it, and it can be an emphasis on the way that they win today, because they're going to be able to run the ball well, because this team cannot play the run. We finally figured out how to run, play, action, pass, and marry up our run and pass game together. So in this game where we actually do run the ball well and we are able to affect the second level, like these shots today, I really expect our receivers to get a lot of work down the field, because this is a perfect recipe and the perfect storm for Grunk to kind of have his welcome to the league moment in terms of throwing the ball down the field and kind of carving up a defense. So I'm excited for our offense. I think it's a massive opportunity.
I'm glad you said that and mentioned Grunk there, and I want to get Christian's thoughts on it. But let's remember, his first three starts are at Iowa, really good defense, tough place to play, at Ohio State, enough said, and then home against a great Indiana team. This is going to be a breath of fresh air for the guy today, him and Terry Smith for this team. And we're talking about Michigan State, but ultimately, Christian, this is about Penn State's the more talented team. If they go out and do what they did last week, they'll win this football game.
Without a doubt, and that's been kind of my ethos talking about this game, is like they played winning football last week, and are they disciplined enough to not allow the emotions of ultimately not winning that game to affect this week's performance? And that's always the challenging part with kids at the end of the day, and all of the black cloud that's been over that football building for a few weeks now. Can you get that? If they are, yes, without a doubt. It's still a team that warranted a number 2 preseason ranking, and as we mentioned, a reason why they were able to give a team like Indiana fits. So it is about Penn State, and I think the last stretch here of this season is about that team. Like, can we not hurt ourselves? Can we be physical, tough, and disciplined? If you are, you're going to like the results.
All right, and you're also going to like, because at the end of the day, there is a seat saved on the plane for the Land Grant Trophy. No better rivalry trophy in sports. And we need to take another look at this thing. There it is. There's Penn State. They've had it PJ Mustipher, Devontae Thomas, and crew celebrating around it. It was established in 1992. Penn State joined the Big Ten. They started playing for it in 93. It's the 29th battle for the Land Grant Trophy today. You can see all the fine, fun details and nuggets on it there. This is a great trophy, Jason. You want to take this thing home at the end of the day. There's nothing like the Land Grant Trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it has a dope story to begin with. You know, Penn State and Michigan State being like the first 2 colleges to be funded when it comes to agriculture and things of that nature. And they kind of led the way from that standpoint. And, you know, we started doing it when Penn State joined the Big Ten, played for the first time the year after. So, like, it's a cool tradition. It has, like, actual historical significance when it comes to, like, colleges being founded and created and things. So, like, I think it's a dope deal. And at the end of the day, like, this is a pretty solid back and forth. You know, 18-10. It's not very one-sided.
Both schools can grow grass. And at the stage in my life where I'm at 30 now, I got an irrigation system put in. Like, I'm taking pride in my grass, so this is my trophy. I'm all about this thing. So good call out there, Jason.
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this. Jason said it's a dope trophy. It looks like a dope designed it. All right, that's a perfect segue. Let's get to our fan question today. Here, what is the question for our experts, Christian Hackenberg and Jason Kimbinda? I love that graphic, by the way. There we are.
So good.
All right, here we go. Our question: what's the best options available for Penn State? A lot of good coaches are getting their deals extended, including the latest. Mike Elko reportedly at Texas A&M today. Reports from, I believe, ESPN. So what are the best options still out there for Penn State? Christian, we'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, I'll start off by saying every athletic director hates Pat Kraft. Every agent and coach's agent loves him. So he's getting more polarizing by the minute. But with that being said, it is tough when you start looking at what has happened and the domino effect. I think it's a testament to this Penn State job and what it really does. Not many schools and openings like this create that type of ripple effect. So that's a tip of the cap to us and everyone that helped build that. But with that being said, to answer the question, I really think it's starting to zero in on Eli Drinkowitz from Missouri, guy who's been at the top of the conversation for a long time. And you haven't seen any movement in terms of rumblings of an extension or anything like that. And I think you got to start chasing that. And then, you know, I've been on this train from the beginning. If we get to plan D, C, E, F, Y, G, you know, just call Billy O back, get him over here. I know Boston College isn't quite having the season that everyone expected him to, but he knows what this place is about. Bring him back. Excuse me, guys.
All good. I'll take over for you. This guy's run out of words. Look, for me, I love that you asked this question because it's the exact same question that I'm asking. Who the hell are we going to hire? Because at the end of the day, I personally don't think Franklin should be gone right now. I don't think that there's a candidate out there that's going to make anybody happy, including myself, including the fan base. You can throw out Brian Hartline out there as the closest thing, I think, to making people excited. But to be completely honest, when you look at the pool and look at who's available and who's not, I don't think there's a name out there that makes anyone happy and can really make anyone be super optimistic. Just to be real, that's really how I feel. So I'm glad that question was asked because I got the same question.
Yeah, it's certainly a very volatile time, too, to be going through this cycle with all the big jobs that are open. Florida State sounds like it may open. LSU, Arkansas. Man, it is a jam-packed cycle right now. It's a great question. I think we're all eagerly awaiting, right? these last 3 games, you want to see the team win. Can they get to a bowl game? But ultimately, what's going to impact the course of the program moving forward the most is who Penn State brings in as that next head coach. We should have had a Modelo ready for Christian there when he started to go. I went through that at the beginning of the show. I was reaching him like, where's a Modelo? We got to get Christian a Modelo to clear his throat out.
Yeah, I got it back. We're good.
All right, because you got it back, final thoughts going into today's game. I think we hit on the key theme pretty much, right? If Penn State can play the way it played last week, build on that, show up, get off the bus, and play that tough, physical brand of defense, get after the quarterback, establish the line of scrimmage, have complementary on football and offense, marrying that run and pass game together, right? We all feel pretty good about this matchup today for Penn State.
Yeah, I definitely do, and I think to your point, Trip, it's going to come down to, can we play our brand of football? If we play our brand of football, I feel comfortable in this point. You look at where both teams are mentally. I think that there's going to be some of those battles that are going to be going on, but at the end of the day, if we're able to capture momentum early, I think this is a good. Unfortunately, I think Michigan State will be a good whipping post for all the pent up frustration that this team has had over the past 6 weeks.
I think this is probably the first game this season that I not only feel like we can win, but that we should. But at the end of the day, as much as we want to say that we are so talented, I'm a big believer in the fact that you are who your record says you are. And the reality is these teams' records both say that they are winless in the Big Ten. And one of these teams today will come out with their first one. And I think this game's going to come down to, at the end of the day, who wants it more, which is why I think that reset from Terry Smith on an energy level aspect is going to be so important to see how they come out in this first half. What does the energy look like out of this team? Does it look like a team who's ready to freaking fight, or is it a team who's ready for the season to be over? So that's what's going to come down to me today between these two teams.
And for me, it sounds so cliche, and I agree with everything that you both said, but it really is. Turnovers, explosive plays, right? Making the right plays, all those cliche things that coaches always talk about. They talk about it for a reason. And Penn State has to win those battles today to have an opportunity to pick up that elusive first Big Ten win on the road and remain eligible for bowl contention. Well, Jason, I hope you took advantage. I heard Steve bought dinner last night, but we're looking forward to the call today and having you on it. Christian, Jason, we'll see you back here at home next week. That wraps up the Modelo Penn State football pregame show. Kickoff coming your way 3:30 today. It's airing on CBS and also on the Penn State Sports Network. Talk to you next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Modelo Penn State football pregame show.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.
We are going for all the marbles next year.
You know the history, and you have felt the roar. But now, you can relive it all.
I think he was looking for a good meal, Italian meal.
Welcome to the Vault on Roar Plus, where every unforgettable Penn State moment lives forever.
If you can get people to believe you're fair, I think that's the whole secret of coaching.
From black and white grit to high def glory, the Vault is your front row seat to the moments that built this tradition and the ones that built you as a fan. It's not just history, it's Penn State history. And it's all right here at Roar Plus. The roar never stops.
This is the mark of a fighter. A rich, full-flavored lager with a crisp, refreshing taste. A reward for those with a fighting spirit. You've earned this, so hold it up high. Modelo, the mark of a fighter.